Hi, I'm Ashish Mathur. In this video, I'd like to show you some of the capabilities of business intelligence within Excel, namely the three tools Power Pivot, Power Query, and Power View. So I'd like to show you the capabilities via the analysis that I've been able to perform on the sales data of a certain company. So what I do is before I actually jump into the analysis, let me just run you by what the data actually looks like. So there's a worksheet over here called the sales data worksheet, wherein I'll just explain the various fields to you. So this is the sales data of an e-commerce company, and this is data for 3 months, January, February, and March. The data is fairly straightforward. So in the very first column over here, I have the category, the categories that are sold by this e-commerce company. So if I go down this list, you'll see there are these 60 odd categories that you'll find down that column. Then there is the shipping address city. That is the city where the goods were shipped to, the city where the customer actually placed the order from. Then there are items or other SKUs that were sold. Then there are products. So between column A, C, and B, the cascade or the waterfall would be first the category within which we'll have the product, within which we'll have the SKU. Then we have the price at which that particular item was sold, the SKU was sold, what was the discount on that. So that's the gross, that's the discount. The time and date at which the customer placed the order, what the order number is, whether the order was cancelled or delivered, and what was the payment type. So there are three payment types over there, which is cash on demand, EMIs, interest-free EMI, and net banking. Now it's a simple column, it's a simple data set over here of about 10 odd columns or so, on which I've actually applied these various BI tools to see as to what reports can one churn out. And it's a fairly small database. If I go down, it's only about 39,000 rows of data. Okay, now given this data set, let's actually get to see as to what I've been able to do. So I go to a worksheet called the overview worksheet, wherein you'll see a simple Power View report having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different small diagrams, or let's say tables over here. Let's start with the one that I see at the top most over here. I can simply pop this one out, and what I have on this particular table is the very first column is the month. Here I have the total revenue. Here I have what's the growth in the revenue over the previous month. Here I have the growth in revenue over the previous month shown as a green or red circle. So if there's a growth in the revenue over the previous month, there's a green circle there, else there's a red one there. Then here I have what is the excess of revenue growth over the orders growth status. So if I just hop over one column, there's a column over here called growth in number of orders over the previous month. So here I had the growth in the revenue, here I have the growth in the orders. Now if the growth in revenue is more than the growth in the orders, then you'll see a green circle here. If it's less, there's a red circle. If it's the same, you'll see a yellow circle there. So for the month of February, the revenue grew by 35.92%, whereas the number of orders grew only by 30.32%. And therefore there's a green circle over here showing that this was a favorable scenario. Then here I have what are the number of orders that were shipped month on month. Here we have all the discount percentages, and here once again we have a red flag or a green flag showing whether the growth in number of orders was a positive one or a negative one. Then here we'll have a field that actually shows us what is the number of categories sold. So month on month, what's the total number of categories sold there? Number of products sold, number of SKUs sold, the total revenue per order, total revenue per product, total revenue per SKU, and the orders per product. Last but not least over there, we have what is the orders per SKU, right? All this coming straight from my Power Pivot formulas. Then below that, I have what is the split up of the total revenue by different categories that I sell, the split up of revenue by the products and by the SKUs. Here we have a simple tabular representation of what's the split up of revenue and number of orders by the first half of the month and the second half of the month. Then here it's a split up by, so here it's the discount percentage that's offered across different categories. The split up over here is by the different times of the day. So I have categorized my 24-hour time span into midday, evening, night, morning, so on and so forth. Here it's a split up by the day of the week, Monday to Sunday. The split up over here is by the payment type, whether it's cash on delivery or whether it's an EMI, net banking, so on and so forth. And here it's a split up of the revenue by the type of city that I have shipped my products to, whether it's a metropolitan city or a non-metro city. Now, if I want to further slice and dice the data, let's say for a particular category, let's for example take up DC. So the moment I click on the DC category over there, you'll actually get to see every other report on my Power View will automatically get sliced as well. Right? So since it's a simple demo that I'm showing you, I'm now not getting into the business insights that I can get from each one of these. That's something which I'd leave you to do once you play around with this model yourself. But what I'm trying to in a sense show you over here is that every single bar or slice or whatever that you see over here is all clickable. Likewise, if I click here on evening, everything over there will automatically cross filter for me, including the information in the table there above. Right, so you'll see for evening my total revenue was 51.78. If I click anywhere back again to restore it to a case of no filters, the revenue, so if I click anywhere back over here, you'll actually get to see the total revenue is 218.17. So you can explore this once you download this workbook yourself. Right, so this is a simple overview of how my business was, and in the filter on the right hand side I've chosen only where the order status is delivered. I can further over here choose any year over here as well. Since this is data only for the year of 2015, I don't get to see the option for multiple years right now. Okay. Thereafter, I have a worksheet called the report selections worksheet, wherein I have multiple slicers. Now I have one slicer for the type of the city, one for the shipping address city, the month, the order period, the payment type, rank by threshold, top N, and threshold for revenue decline. These may not be clear right now. Let me just run you by the various worksheets and then we'll come back to this one over here. Okay, there's a worksheet called events and festivities, which I'll once again come to towards the end of this presentation. Okay, let's jump on to a sheet called city, category, product, and SKU matrix. Okay, so here's what I visualize my report to actually be. Down column A, I wanted to actually see all the categories, products, and the SKUs that I sell. Along the column, I wanted to see all my shipping address city types that I have. So Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Chandigarh, so on and so forth. And for every city there, I've computed 3 KPIs. So the first is the proportion of the total revenue from all categories, products, and SKUs. Then I have proportion of total revenue across all shipping cities. Then I have the proportion of total revenue from all categories, products, and shipping cities. So I'll just explain these to you one by one. Now, if I take a look at this number of 5, let's take an example of actually Bangalore, which is 5.76 over here. So down Bangalore, I see there's a number 5.76 appearing under the column of proportion of total revenue from all categories, products, and SKUs. So what does this actually represent? This represents that for all the categories that were shipped to the city of Bangalore, 5.76% of the total revenue came from the BC category that got shipped to Bangalore. So if I add up all the percentages down this column, you'll actually get to see it adds up to 100%. Essentially, this column gives me a split of the total revenue by different categories that I sell. Okay. Likewise, this figure over here, which is proportion of total revenue across all shipping cities, tells me that category A, which is sold across multiple cities, generated 15.28% of its revenue from Bangalore. Now, if I were to actually horizontally add up this entire row for this particular field here, then for this particular field over here, and so on, you'll see all this will add up to 100%, which is column BE over here. Last but not least, coming back to the Bangalore example itself, proportion of total revenue from all categories, products, and SKUs and shipping cities. So this would actually tell me that if I look at the entire basket, including all categories, products, SKUs, and cities, 0.07% of the revenue came from Bangalore. So if I go to the bottom right hand side figure of this pivot table, assuming that this entire basket is worth 100 is 100%, what was the proportion that I got from Bangalore for that specific category, right? So the very first field over here for Bangalore, the very first field over here vertically adds up to 100%. The second field over here would horizontally add up to 100%. And for the third field, if I take up every single number in this field for every category, that will add up to 100%. Now, not only this, if I actually want to drill down, I can also do so. So if I let's say take up this product called BU, the moment I click on this, you'll actually get to see that within the BU category, there are multiple products, but for the selections that I made in the slicer, there's only one single product that got sold. Let's try to see some other category where there are multiple products sold, so you can see the numbers adding up. Let's take up something like this. So I have expanded the products available under the BSDU category, and if I add up this over here, you'll actually get to see. So if I add up this over here, you'll actually get to see it adds up to 100%. So while BSTU is so while from the city of Bangalore, this category got me 1.18% of the total revenue. Within this category, the product split was as shown over here. And I can go down to one more level over here for book 14, let's say, where I also get to see the SKU breakup. So let's try to see something which has multiple SKUs. Is there something that we can quickly spot? Yeah, book 5, right? If I add up these numbers over here, you'll see it's 100%, right? So that's how it works. And I can likewise split up anything that I see on this table over here. Now, at the very top over there, you'll also get to see a yellow section where I've shown what is the slicer selection that has been made by the end user. So there's a report selections worksheet that I'd just run you by very quickly. I can make any slicer selections over here. So in the month, I've chosen April. In the order period, I've chosen midday over here. And the payment type is cash on delivery. Now, if I go to this particular worksheet, you'll actually get to see my month is April, order period is midday, and payment type is cash on delivery. When I change anything in my slicers, they will automatically carry forward in the yellow section of every single worksheet that you'll see going forward as well. Right? So this is one. Now let's get to see another one of those over there. So if I go to new and existing category product and SKUs, once again, for whatever slicer selections I make on that worksheet, I'll see those selections in individual cells over here. Now here I have a few fields that I've studied, and I have 3 different pivot tables on this worksheet. The first one shows me new and existing categories. Then I have new and existing products, and I have new and existing SKUs. So the total revenue month on month that I earned for the selections made over here, the number of categories sold, the average revenue earned from all the categories sold, the total revenue earned from new categories sold. So the a new category would be a category that was sold for the very first time in that month with absolutely no previous month in which there was any trace of that category. Then business generated from the new categories sold, which makes for January, the reason I see a 100% over there is that there is no precedent month over there at all. So this you can see fell to a 0.30 in Feb and jumped to 3.31 in April. There was no new category sold in the month of March. Then number of new categories sold over here, average revenue earned from new categories sold, accretion decretion to top line attributable to new categories sold. So if my total revenue was 13.97% and the average revenue earned is 0.46 over here, I actually get to see what is the proportion of revenue earned, what is the proportion earned from the new categories compared to the entire purchase basket for that month, right? Okay, then I have number of categories sold in the previous month but not in this month. So in the month of March, there were 2 categories that were sold in February that were not sold in March. Then what's the monthly churn percent, which is basically 2 over here divided by the number of categories sold in the previous month, right? 2 divided by 39. Okay, so just as I have analyzed over here the new and existing categories, I've done the same for new and existing products also over here, and the new and existing SKUs as well over here. Just to save on time, I won't run you by the same fields, but whatever we've seen over here has been replicated over here for products and over here for SKUs. Okay, now we go down to a sheet called the city drill down. So what I wanted to actually see was the cascade from cities to categories to products to SKUs, right? So first and foremost, before we get started off with the pivot table below, you will see a yellow section over here wherein you'll be able to see you'll be able to see within cells of what selections I've made in the slicers on the report selections worksheet. And the reason I actually have this atop every single worksheet is to prevent the to and fro between that sheet and this one. So if I make a certain selection over there, by the time I come to this worksheet, if I forget the selections, I need not go back to that worksheet. I can just look at the top portion of this worksheet to see what selections have I made in the slicers over there. Okay, so here's what it is. On the left hand side over here, so I have the various shipping address cities that I have. I have the revenue per city over here. I have the total revenue contribution by city over here. So this 46.29 would be 6.47 divided by the total revenue 13.97 over here. Then I have what's the total revenue per order for every city. What is the growth in revenue over the previous month? So you can see over here I've chosen April in the slicer. So this is growth in revenue for every city of April over March. Then a green circle over here would indicate a growth, whereas a negative one has registered a degrowth. So as I can see, most over here have grown in the month of April, but for let's say 3 of those in Hyderabad, Chennai and Delhi. Okay, then you'll see a green tick over here, which is very similar to what I had shown you on the Power View report at the very beginning itself. So if the growth in the revenue over the previous month is greater than the growth in the orders over the previous month, then there's a green tick against that. So if I hop on a few fields forward, there's something over here called growth in number of orders over previous month. So as you can see, in Bangalore, the orders registered a decline of 23.83% in April over March, but the revenue grew by 146.06%. Since this percentage is greater than this percentage over here, you'll see a green tick over there. You see a yellow exclamation because the growth over here is exactly the same for both. Then here I have what's the growth in revenue over the selected month -2. So what this means is that if I've chosen April over here, this column shows me growth in April over March. This over here shows me the growth in March over February. And once again, I have a green or a red circle and a green tick or a red cross over here, similar to what we saw over here. Then that's the growth in revenue over selected month -3. So this is growth in February over January. So once again, this is growth in April over March. That's growth in March over Feb, and that's the growth in Feb over Jan. Okay. Then I similarly have the growth number, the growth figures for the orders as well. So that was for absolute revenue. That's for the orders that I have. Okay. Then over here I have what is the rank by city. So I have now what have I ranked by is the question. Have I ranked by the number of orders or have I ranked by the revenue? Now that's where the field called rank by comes into play. On the report selections worksheet, if you recall, there was a rank by slicer there where one can either choose number of orders or total revenue or the total revenue per order. So since I've chosen total revenue over there, the rank over here that you see is by the total revenue. If I change that to total orders, two things would happen. Number one, this would change to total orders automatically via the cubed formulas, and this ranking will also undergo a change. Then what's the rank by city in the previous month? So since I've chosen April over there, this is the rank in the month of April by total revenue, and this is the rank in the month of March by total revenue. That's the rank movement by the city. So if the rank remains the same, it's a 0. If it moves up or down, you'll see those notches that it's moved up or down by. So this particular city moved up 6 notches, so that I see a number 6 there, which is essentially the difference between these two columns. And once again, a KPI over there which shows me either a red arrow, a green arrow or a yellow arrow depending upon in what direction the rank moved. Then here I have what is the proportion of rank by earned from the top N categories, products and SKUs. I'll say that again, proportion of rank by earned from top 10 categories, top 10 categories, products and SKUs. So on the report selections worksheet, There's something called top N where one can choose 5, 10 or 15. I made a selection of 10 over there. So if I go back to that worksheet, what this tells me is what is the proportion of total revenue within each city from the top 10 from the top 10 categories, right? So once again, if I'm looking at the city of Bangalore there, so 65.70% of the total revenue earned in the city of Bangalore came from my top 10 products. If I change that to 5 or 15, this number will automatically keep changing over here as well. Then what are the categories in decline? So what does category in decline is, what is this defined as? Once again, on the report selections worksheet, categories in decline is coming from this selection over here called threshold for revenue decline. So my intention was to actually see that within each city, which categories are in decline, and for studying the categories in decline I've set certain thresholds, so which are actually minus 75%, minus 50% and minus 25%. I've currently chosen minus 75% over here. So what these numbers tell me is that in the city of Bangalore there were 3 categories which declined by more than 75% in revenue terms over the previous month, right? There's a red flag showing me where the decline has actually happened. Then what is the proportion of categories in decline? So 3 divided by the total number of categories sold in that city is 7.89%. Then likewise I have products in decline as well. So in the city of Bangalore, there were 69 products that registered a decline in the total revenue over the revenue earned in the previous month. And the same happens here for the SKUs in decline as well. Then here I have what is the number of categories, products and SKUs which contribute to selected threshold of the total revenue. So what's the selected threshold there? If I go to the report selections worksheet, there's something called threshold where I have 70%, 80% and 90%, right? Now the problem is that in a slicer one cannot represent percentages, or at least I could not figure out a way to do that, and therefore even though you may have percentages stored in the power pivot, once you create a slicer from them, they come up as normal decimals itself. So 70, 80, 90%, I've chosen 80% over there. So what this one tells me is that how many categories do I actually have in that particular city which contributed to 80% of my total revenue, or rather at least 80% of my total revenue, and that's the proportion of those categories. Okay. Now this is once again at a very peripheral level. One can further drill down to this, as I said, from cities to categories to products to SKUs. So let's say if I click on Mumbai over here, this does take a bit of time to actually expand. That's because there's a lot of processing that happens, but should not either case take more than about 5 odd seconds or so. So within the city of Mumbai, these are the various categories that I have. That's the revenue split and the split by every other category that you see over there. I can likewise go to a further drill down of categories over here. So that's the city. Those are the categories. Within that category, I have 4 products, and within every product as well, I can further drill down, and I can study all the parameters for any city that I choose over there. Once again, just to save on your time, I'm not running you by the numbers right now, but once you download the workbook, you'll be able to play around with these things yourself. Right, so that's what I call the city drill down over here. So along similar lines, I have something called the month drill down as well, where the structure is quite similar to what you've already seen. The slicer selections are all shown over here. The difference is that there in the previous worksheet, I had cities over here. Here I have the months. So from months, one can drill down to the categories. From the categories, one can further drill down to the products. And from the products, one can go down to the SKU level. We need not go through the various fields over here because they are more or less similar to what you've already seen. In fact, they would be the same itself, but for maybe 1 or 2 that are missing in this sheet. Then something called the category drill down. Now, while the previous 2 worksheets showed me first city, then category, product, product, and then SKU. And this one showed me month, category, product and SKU. This one shows me category, product and SKU, right? So here the topmost level is the category itself. From the category I can drill down to the product, from the product to the SKU, and so on. Right? Okay, a bit of a lag over here. Okay, I get back to where I started from. So once again, I see the growth figures. I see the ranking figures over here. I see what are the products and SKUs in decline. I see what's the how many products in each category are earning above the threshold that I've selected, and each one of these will obviously respond to whatever selections you make in the slicer back there. Okay, so likewise, I have something called a product drill down as well, which is basically products down to SKUs. Right, so if you've understood one, you've by default understood the other three worksheets over there as well, right? Okay, now let's go on to something called growth and indexing. So one limitation as I've recorded this video is that in Power View, one cannot create two y-axis charts. So for the ones of you who use Excel a fair bit, you would know that it's very easy to create a two y-axis chart in Excel, wherein your number of orders can be shown along the secondary y-axis, and the revenue can be shown on the primary y-axis on the left hand side. Now you cannot create such charts, at least as of this version in Excel. So I'm using Excel 2013 Professional Plus. So in order to counter that, what I've done is this. Now what I wanted to actually do was, I wanted to show revenue and the number of orders on the same particular chart. Now I can obviously create two charts for it, but I did not want to go that route. I wanted to see how can I get them both on the same platform itself. So what I did was, since absolute numbers cannot be shown, one being in sort of, let's say millions and one being only in thousands, here's what I did. I've actually indexed the total revenue to the best month, and I've also indexed the total number of orders to the best month. So as you can see, along the x-axis I have the number of months over here. So the red line is the number of orders indexed to the best month. This tells me that in March is when my number of orders peaked. Okay, which is why it's 100%, and every other number is shown as a proportion of that 100%. So in April, the total number of orders was 92.63% of the total number of orders in March. And I've done the same for my total revenue here as well. So the blue line represents the revenue and the red line represents the number of orders. And since I was showing percentages, what I could also crunch on the same chart was the growth in number of orders over the previous month and the growth in revenue over the previous month. Right, so if you just carefully observe one thing, you'll see that the growth in number of orders was minus 7.37% in April, right? Whereas if I look at the number of orders indexed to the best month, it is 92.63%. The difference between 100 and this is exactly this number over here. So by way of actually indexing to the best month, since everything converts into a percentage, I can now actually show multiple parameters over here, right? Okay, and once again for the order status I've chosen delivered. Now all this is fairly snappy in the sense that if I go and actually, let's say, check the box for Mumbai there, you'll actually get to see it, everything dynamically changes for me, right? Without any waiting involved whatsoever. So if I were to select, let's say, Noida here, so I'll see Jan, Feb and April. There was no business at all in the month of March, right? I uncheck that box and I come back to where I started from. Likewise, I can select anything else here that I want. So if I choose cash on delivery over here, you'll actually get to see everything changing in real time for me. Okay, then over here I have something called the timeline analysis. So on this particular Power View worksheet, you'll actually get to see 4 different charts on this quadrant. So in the so on all these charts, what's common is that on the x-axis I have the number of orders. So number of orders, same over here as well. I have the total revenue along the y-axis, which is the same for the other 4 as well. Now what really is different between all of them is, so on this chart you will get to see that in the details section over here I have the categories. If I click on this chart, in the details section I have the products. Here I have the SKUs and here I have the cities. So let's just see any one of them and we'll by default understand the others as well. So if I just pop one of those charts out, once again I have the number of orders over here. I have the number of, I have the total revenue here. So the different bubbles over here are for the different categories that I sell, and the size of every bubble over here is proportionate to the total revenue per order. So the way I would interpret this yellow circle over here is that, excuse me, the FS category earned a revenue of sorry, the total number of orders was 147. The total number of the total revenue was 5.66 million rupees, or crore rupees you may say. And what's the total revenue per order? So for me, what would be beneficial is to have most of my bubbles towards this portion, along this line. Actually, I'd love to have a situation where my revenue is very high for very few orders that I execute for that particular category. So not only that, there's also a play button over here where I can actually see how these bubbles moved in across a period of time. So if I actually were to click on this, you'll actually get to see how the FS went all the way up there across different months, and how it then came back thereafter. If there's too much clutter over here, you want to focus only on FS, I just click on this and I can actually see what the trajectory was, right? So I click on this, you see it moving up, going there, then it falls back right over here, right? And one can do something similar for products and SKUs as well. So that's for categories, that's products, that's for the SKUs, and that's for the cities that I ship my orders to. Okay. And last but not least, there's something there called an affinity analysis, one of my personal favorites actually. So if one visits any of these e-commerce websites, a very common experience that all of us observe over there is that if you choose a certain product, you'll actually get to see over there as to people who bought this also bought this. Now I wanted to get something similar from the sales data that I have with me. So I've chosen, so whatever selections I made in the slicer are all shown over here as well. Now here's a very simple pivot table. I dragged all my categories over here. There's a category column over here which is blank. We'll see what this actually is. I have my months over here at the column labels, and a grand total column over there. Now let's just see what this number 270 is. So this 270 tells me that a total of 270 orders were executed across all the months of this category, right? Now I want to know what sells well together. I mean, what is sold along with this particular category that I sell. So the moment I actually go and expand this, now you'll see this category column populates as well. So once again, a total of 270 orders were dispatched in this category across all the months, and of these 270 orders that were dispatched, there were 26 such orders which also contained this particular category. So I see that the second highest category which sells along with this particular one over here is this one over here, right? So the way to read this once again is that that's my category, that's the category that got sold with it, and that's the total number of orders of this category that got sold along with this one over here. So I can likewise expand anything else over here, and you can see how fast this actually works, right, on that 40,000 rows of data or so, right? If I go make any changes in the slicer over there, not only will these entries over here update, but the numbers over here will also keep updating automatically, right? So I've run you by each of these worksheets. Once again, it's been a fairly fast walkthrough. That's because I would expect you, if at all interested, for you to actually go and play around with slicers and selections yourself. Now I come on to one more sheet that I'd like to show you over here, which is called events and festivities. So if you observe all the other worksheets, you'll see that my slicing is happening at a monthly level, right? You'll see, you may have noticed a lot of pivot table that I showed you where one could either choose a month from a slicer, or else there were slices already, or else there were months already appearing in the column labels of that pivot table. Now the question here was, how do I do a free form search? In other words, I should be able to choose any date that I have from the sales date column in my base data table, and be able to compare the KPIs across the two dates ranges that I've selected. So let's take a simple example of, you know, there is a certain event that happened between the 1st and 4th of February 2015, and another event that happened on between the 1st and 4th of March 2015. So I make those selections via the timeline slicer over here. And I also over here shown what slicer selections I've made from the report selections worksheet. And I have 3 columns over there: beginning date range, ending date range, and the growth or decline for the multiple parameters that you see over here. So what was the total revenue between the 1st and 4th of Feb? It's this. Between the 1st and 4th of March is this, and that's the growth or the decline that I see there. And I've studied revenue, categories, products, SKUs sold, total revenue per category, product, SKU, number of categories which contribute to selected threshold of total revenue, proportion. So all the parameters which I had shown you on the multiple pivot tables over here have all been studied over here as well. So this is more of my dashboard actually, wherein, you know, every day when I open this up, I need not go to the rummage through the various worksheets over there. I just make any slicer selection over here and that's about it. I'm done. So if I want to actually extend this to the 6th, you'll see the moment I make that selection over there, this is still refreshing, and once that completes, you'll actually get to see what the performance was. So the beginning date range would be 1st to 4th of Feb, and the ending date range would be 1st to 6th of March there, right? So this is just a very brief overview of what I've been able to do. There's a lot more that's there in this particular workbook. If at all interested, you can download the workbook from the link which I'll share with you, and feel free to give me your feedback of what better could be done over here, or what else would you want incorporated over here, right? And I hope you enjoyed watching this short video. Thank you.